Hey guys and girls, it's Ken here from OK Portugal and welcome to another episode of Portugal Farm Life. Goodbye doggies, look after the farm. Goodbye doggies. Last week we went up the Gardunha mountains. We had a nice little adventure. So I thought, you know what, this week I'm going to go on another little adventure. Today we're going to go and check out the Barragem de Marateca. So at the bottom of our road is a place where you can get to this dam. And yesterday I found out a disturbing report that there's a whole bunch of dead fish and some dead birds on the shore of the dam. So immediately as I pull up, I can see there's quite a bit of algae in the water. Now we've been, this is going to be like our third summer. So I've seen this dam quite a few times, and yeah, it's never usually like this. And if I look in this direction, I can actually start to see some of the dead fish. What a shame. Now the police were here, the Environment Agency was here yesterday. I don't know if they've picked up a whole bunch of samples or if these are ones that are left over from yesterday. Actually, yeah, I mean, this looks like it's been sitting here for quite some time. What a pity, look at that. So those are some nice big fish. And yeah, a whole bunch of them, all the way stretching down here. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a marine biologist. That was something which I thought I was going to become one day, and I've been keeping tropical fish for probably about half of my life. And so I know quite a lot about fish, I know quite a lot about water systems, and what I'm seeing here looks like there's some kind of oxygen shortage. It could be cyanobacteria, which is a type of toxic algae. This stuff, I mean, obviously without testing it I can't actually see, but basically that type of algae, what it can do is it can starve the water of oxygen. It can also create toxins. So either the fish are dying because there's low oxygen, or they're dying because there's toxins in the water. Now, looking at the fact that there's only big dead fish, and bigger fish need more oxygen, and all of the smaller fish are still alive, I'm sort of thinking that it's something to do with oxygen levels. Now, the way that the oxygen levels will get lower is probably because of this algae bloom. So the algae bloom, it actually consumes oxygen in the water. At certain parts of the day when the sun's shining, it'll create oxygen, and at other times of the day when the sun isn't shining, it'll create CO2. And that's what's probably killing the bigger fish. They need a much higher concentration of oxygen in the water. Another thing that it could potentially be is obviously toxic algae. But I'm kind of ruling that out personally because none of the smaller fish are dead. The smaller fish should be more susceptible to something like that. A larger fish should be, much more able to handle the effects of toxicity. Obviously, I haven't tested this. I don't have any equipment to test this. The Environment Agency, they're obviously going to be looking into that. So this algae could just be regular green algae, or it could also have something called cyanobacteria in it. And cyanobacteria is also known as like blue-green algae. And basically, they create cyanotoxins, which are toxic to fish and other aquatic life. The fact that they found dead birds could be indicative that the birds are eating some of this algae is toxic, and it's killing the birds. But I haven't seen any birds here so far. I've only seen some dead fish, and I'm not seeing any small dead fish. So why is algae starting to bloom in this lake? Okay, basically algae feeds off phosphorus, and phosphorus is one of the most common things used in fertilizers in farming. It's actually one of the most important or essential elements in modern agriculture. Huge amounts of it are used every single year to keep modern agriculture going and to keep food on the table. And what happens when it rains is that all of these nutrients find their way into the waterways, into the lakes and things like that. And then you can get these algae blooms. Algae in itself is not a bad thing, but obviously cyanobacteria is a bad thing, creating those toxins. Algae is natural. It basically appears in all lakes and oceans and rivers and things like that. But it only goes into like a bloom mode where there's like an abundance of phosphorus or an abundance of nitrates or nitrites in the water. and then all of a sudden you'll get these big blooms. Now usually with like natural water systems, it's not a problem because there's natural ways of dealing with it. But if you've got a lot of agriculture happening around these lakes and things like that, as soon as you get rains and there's water runoff that goes into the rivers and then finds its way into the lakes, that's when you get these problems. So yeah, in a way we are off the farm today, but this is still an episode of Portugal Farm Life. It's a real shame to see all of these dead fish just washed up here. Now I imagine a lake like this probably contains thousands of fish, and we are only seeing a few. So potentially another theory here could be that there's a build-up of toxicity in some of these fish. That's why the bigger ones are dying. That's why we're only seeing a few. And as the water levels get lower and lower and the water becomes more concentrated because of the drought, the levels of toxins and things obviously increase in parts per million, and yeah, more and more fish die. The only way to really tell is obviously to do some kind of toxicology report on the water itself and to try and figure out whether it's poison or whether it's low oxygen levels that have killed these fish. But yeah, it's a real shame to see, because obviously this is like almost right on our doorstep, and we don't want something like this where our farm is. There's also another potential culprit, and we'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, I'm going to get on my bike, I'm going to cycle around to some other parts of the dam so I can show you just how beautiful this place is when we don't have a problem like this. Bear in mind that this isn't a permanent issue. This is some kind of poisoning that's occurred, and obviously something that can be fixed and addressed. So don't blacklist this place off your places, off your list of places to come. The Marateca is still a beautiful place, but right now I would avoid drinking the water, and I'd avoid bathing in it if you're in an area where you can see all of the algae and you can see dead fish. So I just realized that I didn't bring any water with me. Just got to pop into the farm quick and grab some. Nemo, you're not very good guard dogs. Unfortunately, I didn't have any at home. I can't find my cycling bottle either. So I'm just going to have to make a quick detour, go to the shops in Solera and pick some up. It's an absolute stunner of a day today. 26 degrees, it's going up to 27 tomorrow, then like 28, 29. I think it even hits like 30 in about a week's time. Now if you watched my last week's episode, I went up the Gardunya mountains and we did like a little bit of urban exploration and found some burnt out old buildings. It was an awesome little adventure, and one of the things that happened is I got a bit of a puncture in my tire. So this week I've got some special stuff in my tires. It's like a special sealant, so if you get any thorns or anything like that, the sealant basically fills up the gaps and you should be able to keep on riding. So we've got some water and our adventure continues. Now I've got a little bit of road cycling to do until we get to a section where we can go off-road and start to get closer to the water again. And I'm interested to see whether or not there's any more dead fish, or if it's even worse on other sides of the dam. But also I want to show you guys just how beautiful it is over here. This is like a glitch. This is a temporary thing. This has actually happened once before in 2018, and I believe it was a problem with a fungicide or a herbicide that they were using on some of the cherry trees. We're coming up to a spot now where Theo and I used to do a bit of fishing last year. This is a really beautiful spot. And there's also water on the other side of the road. There's some really lovely roads to cycle here in Central Portugal, mainly because there's hardly any traffic and there's some beautiful roads, amazing scenery. It's definitely a dream place for cyclists. There's dirt tracks going all around this Marateca. You can actually go right around in a circle. Some of the dirt tracks take you quite far away from the water, but for the majority of it you can pull over right next to the water, jump in and have a swim. Obviously not while there's a fish poisoning problem going on, but nonetheless, hopefully that will be sorted by the summer. Whoa! Don't have the right tires for this. So we've arrived at this section here. It's quite nice how they've put things in Portuguese and in English. But basically this just gives you some information on the Albufera de Santa Agueda, which is this big reservoir dammed up by the Marateca Dam. And yeah, this is just a whole bunch of like the different bird species. So there's the grey heron, the cattle egret, and over here we've got the little egret, the great crested grebre, and we also have the white stork, which comes, it says here, summer bird. I think they come in the spring and then they stay here in the summer. And yeah, usually this is a really nice place to come. In the summertime, there's actually like a path or a road that you can drive through. But now the water level's a little bit high. But here I am actually noticing some more of these dead fish. So it's a real shame. One over here, I'm seeing another one just down there. The algae bloom in the water here doesn't look as bad, but then again it's actually quite a bit deeper, so I'm not sure if that's the reason. Sadly, there's a whole bunch more. Wow, this really is bad. And look at all these tiny little things in the water. Hopefully the camera can pick them up. I wonder what they are. Actually, I don't know, they look like tiny little crustaceans. Maybe tiny little baby crabs or something like that. Yeah, the smell is pretty bad here. And now we can see this algae, which is consuming oxygen in the water and also poisoning it. So if you swim in water that has this kind of algae in it, it can give you like stomach cramps, blood in your stool, it can give you headaches, nausea, dizziness, it can make you feel really unwell. So it's not a good idea. There is, a big difference between regular algae, and obviously there's nothing wrong with regular algae, that's quite natural to have in a river. But if you have this toxic blue-green algae, you definitely shouldn't swim. Normally there would be a road going along here in the summer, and I could kind of get around the dam that way. Unfortunately, it's all completely overgrown at the moment, or the water's going over all the sections where I can ride. So I'm going to head on back in this direction, get onto the main road, and I'm going to cycle right across to the other side there where the dam is. So we're back on the open road. I'm just going to be on this tarmac for a little while, and then I'll take us to the dam wall. The main sort of agriculture going on here is sheep farming, and in order to grow sheep you need lots of grass, and in order to grow grass you need to use fertilizers and phosphates and things like that. And obviously these slopes and everything all lead down into this lake. And as soon as those fertilizers and phosphates get into the water system, then they create algae. So yeah, it's unfortunately just a side effect of agriculture, farming and raising livestock. So there's some dirt trails over here that, they help me miss out this whole highway section. So I think I'm going to take them because it's a bit safer than riding along like a sort of really busy road with fast moving traffic. It's amazing how little traffic there is in Central Portugal. I just love being out here on these tracks. There's absolutely no one around. These beautiful dirt tracks in the middle of nature. You've got farms around you, farmland, and yeah, you can just sort of de-stress and unwind and not focus on all the problems and all of the stuff going on in your life. You can just kind of like focus on the smells, the sights, the sounds. Absolutely love it here. One thing I don't see very much of is cattle. You don't see very many cows around here. It's mainly sheep. When we lived up in the mountains, it was mainly goats. But every now and then you do see a cattle farm. And these guys over here don't look like milk cows. I can see they've got udders, but very, very small ones. So these are obviously being bred for beef, for meat. Now, cows drink a lot of water, and each cow needs around 1 hectare of land, unless you're going to be, feeding it artificial food. So they have a huge space requirement, but they are pretty cool. One of these days, I think it would be quite nice to have a cow. So you can get some milk, and also you can get some nice manure to compost for your vegetable garden. I was chatting to some villagers a while back from my local village of Sluice, and they were saying that back in the days everyone used to keep cattle. Everyone had cows, and that it was actually quite a nuisance because all of like the paved roads and everything around there were just covered in cow manure, whereas now it's just got like little sheep pellets all over it. It's not as bad. But I'd love to have seen it back in those days where they would have herds of cows going through the streets, and yeah, a much simpler time. So this little bit of dirt track helps us to avoid a really busy section of road, and then it joins us up with this road over here, and just to the right in front you can see the big lake again. So it's actually quite a nice little track to take if you don't want to have too much traffic around you. So this over here is like a big parking lot, and you can access the water straight from it. And this is probably like one of my most favorite points of the dam, because you can explore a lot, see a lot, and you can also park your car. And from here there's a fantastic view. You can see the Gardenia Mountains in the background, and there's a lovely sandy sort of beach area where you can walk into the water. Obviously right now it's not such a good idea because I'm seeing another dead fish. So yeah, not great. So there's trails going all the way around. You can get to this little point which sticks out. There's all sorts of beautiful rocks and everything. Lovely little swimming spots. So let's go and have a look down there. So these little trails are pretty cool around here. Now as the summer kicks in, it's not so green anymore, and it just starts to really dry out. But it's still a really beautiful place to come in the summer. Even on this spot here, I'm still seeing some more dead fish. There's one over here, and there's one just down by the water over there. The actual algae in the water here doesn't look too bad. So it doesn't look like there's an algae issue. It really is quite confusing, all of this, because I really have no idea what's killing these fish. I thought I did, but now I'm not even seeing algae. That's been dead for quite a while. Amazing how they actually rock up on the shore. I mean, it's kind of beached itself. Perhaps there was a very strong wind or something that did that. Right, I'm going to take you to another one of my favorite places, which is just up on the rocks behind here. Much deeper water there, and yeah, really beautiful, really good for swimming, because you can sort of start swimming straight away in the deep water. And here we are. It's a whole bunch of granite rocks with a beautiful view, especially this one over here. Got the whole Gardenia Mountain in the background and this beautiful mirror-like lake. So stunning. And a little eucalyptus forest. If you want shade, you can park off underneath the trees. This is definitely one of my favorite places, close to the farm, the Marateca. There's a whole multitude of amazing places all around this dam where you can go, and it's definitely well worth checking out. So while cycling down here, I just saw a big fish just jump out of the water in search of some prey. So even though we have seen some dead fish, it doesn't mean that all the fish are dead, and it also doesn't mean that the water is completely toxic and terrible. It just means that there's something going on in here that's killed some of the fish. Obviously I'm going to keep a close eye on it, and yeah, if it starts to get really bad, you guys will know all about it. So now I'm going to take you to the dam wall, and I'll give you a little bit of information on this place because it's pretty cool. I'm standing on the dam wall of the Marateca, and it was designed in 1982 and it was basically completed in 1991. So it's 9 years old. The actual width of the dam is 7.6 meters and the height of the dam is 25 meters. So there's 25 meters of landfill. They've basically just filled it with soil and rocks and everything to create this wall. And there's a river which is up there somewhere, called the Algae, and the Algae River basically runs into here and fills up this dam. And on this side over here, they have a pump, and that basically pumps water out of the dam and sends it to a water treatment plant. The total area of this dam is 650 hectares, so it's absolutely huge. And all of this water is basically the drinking water for the Castelo Branco district. So the problem right here that we're seeing with the fish and with some of the pollution, with some of the algae, is probably quite a serious problem. So I've been told that in order to create this dam, they had to flood an entire village, which is inside the center of the dam here. That apparently there's like a church in there, a whole bunch of houses and buildings and farmland, and they had to relocate all those people, so they had to pay them, move them out. And after they built this wall, they just started to flood it up with the river from the Algae. All of that water came in here, and now we have this huge lake. So somewhere beneath the water is a whole bunch of old history and buildings and churches and things like that. It's pretty cool. So this building over here with all the pipes sticking out of it, this is the big water pump. And when we get closer to it, I've got a feeling that we're actually going to be able to hear the pumps in action. So it's quite a cool structure. You've got these two huge pipes. I only think one of them is working at the moment. I felt this one, and it's not this one. It's sounding hollow. I think it's this one over here. And I don't know if the microphone's picking it up, but there's like a whirring sound of the water being pumped out. So the water pipes run all the way from the pump house and then they run all along this dam wall. This dam wall is over 1 kilometer long, which is pretty amazing. And at the far end of the dam wall over here is a water treatment plant. I'll take you there now. Actually, before we get there, I wanted to point these out. These are like the sluice gates. So basically, when the water level gets too high, they can open these gates up and they can discharge water from here across into this canal system over here. And I'm not entirely sure where all of this ends up, but that's to basically prevent the water from getting so high that it goes over the top of this landfill dam and starts to weaken the structure, wash the road away, and before you know it, you have an entire flood descending all the way down the valley. So in the front of us here is the water treatment plant, and let's just drive up to it quickly. Obviously I can't go on site, but I can show you and give you a good idea of what it looks like from the outside. It's this over here. Now I'm not really sure what these are, but these look quite old and dilapidated. Although the actual main building in the background looks like it's in quite good condition. And if you look just up there, we got a little stork in his nest. These storks are actually a protected species here, so when they nest, you aren't allowed to move them. There's also another one sitting just up there. So yeah, wherever they make their nest, you're not allowed to do anything about it. You just got to leave their nest there. So those guys probably can't use that little winch or anything anymore. What are the chances of this happening? I'm on the side of the road here, next to the water treatment plant, and I've just come across another one of these. This is called a fascination. And a fascination is basically when a plant deforms or mutates. So it's got some kind of DNA damage. And yeah, basically the cells don't divide properly. And I found one of these on my farm last year. I'm sure you guys will remember. Now the actual plant should look like this. This is called the Viper's bluegrass, or I think they call it Patterson's curse in Australia. And as you can see, it's got like a regular thin stem. And what's happened here is its stem has basically expanded outwards. So this is a single stem that's mutated and gone out sideways. And then on the crown up at the top here, it's got tons of flowers sticking out. I mean, the craziest part about this is that the chances of this happening are like, you know, 1 in several million, or billion even. And this is the second one I've seen. Wow, that is pretty freaky. I mean, I don't think it's anything to worry about. Apparently it can happen through viral, you know, like a viral issue or a bacterial issue or genetic issue, DNA damage basically. And then it forms like a strange way of growing. But that's the second time I've seen it growing exactly like that. I wonder if it's going to become a new sort of hybrid soon. So yesterday when I bumped into the GNR and the guy from the Environment Agency, just before we went down to the dam, the guy told me that this water treatment plant is obviously testing the water, and that the water that is going out to Castelo Branco is totally fine. It has been tested, but that they're not really sure what the problem is that's killing the fish or anything like that yet. And so they are investigating. So don't worry, you can still drink the water in Castelo Branco. It's not a problem. I just thought I'd mention that in case everyone got freaked out. But yeah, this is this water treatment plant here in the background. You can see they've got these big tanks. And yeah, they've obviously got scientists and people that know exactly what they're doing to purify and treat water before it goes into the municipal sort of tap water system. So we're going to turn down here. We're going to go back down in the direction of the water. And there's another really nice little beach that I like going to. So there's some like old caravan sort of camping spot or something over here. I'm very jealous of this little spot. I mean, it doesn't look like whoever owns it comes back to it or anything. Although I say that, but these are some fresh tire tracks. So yeah, someone has been here recently. Looks like they've got like a real old dilapidated caravan, and then they've got like some kind of container, and it's all fenced and gated off, and it's right on the water. I mean, how nice is that? That is absolutely stunning. I would love to own that. And then just past here is a really nice little beach. So I'm seeing some kind of a sign here, and here we go. Okay, this never used to be here before, and this is obviously to do with the algae. It says here, advice against bathing. Okay. Oh, okay, this isn't to do with the algae. It just says this is not identified bathing water. So I don't think anyone's saying that you can't bathe here because of like the water pollution or anything like that. I think they're basically saying that there's going to be no lifeguards. It's not safe, and it's, you know, they advise you against it. If you drown, it's your own problem, stuff like that. In the summertime when I come down here, there's all these guys sitting on chairs fishing. What's quite nice about this bit of water is that it immediately gets deep quite quickly. So it's not like you have to walk out 50 meters and you're still like up to your knees. Over here, you basically wade out, and within a few steps you're already up to your waist, and before you know it you're already swimming. And there's also quite a lot of parking where you can park your car underneath the trees and stuff. Now here is another culprit, or at least I think that this is another culprit that could be potentially causing problems with the water. This over here is a farm, and it's either got cherry trees or some kind of fruit trees. I think it's probably cherry trees. So this is the start of a very big cherry farm by the looks of it. Those are definitely cherry trees. They're quite immature trees at the moment, but there's a lot of them, and they go right on down to the water. So it's an absolutely beautiful farm. I mean, look at this farmhouse. Incredible. Every time I come past here, I'm super jealous of how nice it is. It's built out of stone. It's a really amazing, amazing farm. It's dissected with this road and then obviously carries on to the right here. Now, one of the things that I think could be causing some kind of pollution in the water are cherry farms. And the reason I say that is because they use something called Bordeaux solution. Now, Bordeaux solution is basically copper sulfate mixed with lime and water. And they spray that onto the trees about twice a year to control funguses and bacteria and things. It's basically an algicide, a fungicide, and a bactericide. Now, the problem with it is it builds up in the soil. So you get a buildup of copper in the soil below, and that kills things like earthworms and microorganisms. And if it gets into the water system, which is just behind here, it's highly toxic to aquatic life. So fish, invertebrates, things like crayfish, shellfish, fish, and then obviously birds eating those animals. So obviously I'm not saying that these guys are responsible for it. You know, I'm just cycling along this lake and reporting on what I see. But when you see things like cherry trees this close to the water, and you know that they do use copper sulfate on cherry trees, and the fact that copper sulfate is highly toxic to aquatic life, that definitely makes it a culprit that's potentially killing the fish around here. Now, I'm pretty sure that the Environment Agency and all the guys that are testing the water at the moment and trying to figure out what's going on, pretty sure they're going to be onto it. They're going to know whether there's elevated levels of copper, and we'll have our answer soon. But for the time being, I don't think I'm going to be swimming in there, which is a real shame because, as you know, we love going here in the summer.